If you find yourself relying on your friends, you don't mind people always picking up the tab for you, you're comfortable with it, you're comfortable with your parents always coming through even after the age of 30, you don't mind being the responsibility financially of anyone else, you might have the Cinderella complex. Today's video is all about the Cinderella complex. What is the Cinderella complex? And I know with a name like Cinderella, you might think that only women deal with this, but men deal with the Cinderella complex also. What is the root of it and how can you overcome it? You might relate to a couple of these, maybe not all to an extreme level. I do think there's different levels to it, but let's discuss in the comments. But before we get into it, first, hey friend, welcome to my channel, Green Elude Mental Gems. This channel is dedicated to leveling up in all areas of your life. So let us learn together, read together, but most importantly, grow together. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. First, what is the Cinderella complex? So the Cinderella complex is a term that was coined by best-selling author Colette Dowling. The Cinderella complex is a hidden desire to be saved, and deep down, you don't want to be responsible for yourself and fear independence. Just like Cinderella, we deem our own hard work and intelligence is not enough, believing we need an outside force, another person to arrive and save the day. Cinderella complex is all about not trusting that you're capable of being alone or doing things, accomplishing great things without a group, somebody to hold your hand, guidance. There's a lot of people that I would say that suffer. We are going to get into the signs of the Cinderella complex, but if you find yourself constantly always looking for mentorship or people to motivate you to work out or people to get you to get your things in order and stuff like that, that's also a sign that you deal with the Cinderella complex. You don't believe in yourself enough to have that discipline necessary to reach your goals. So you always find yourself looking for outside help, mentorship, paying for courses, etc., because you just don't really believe in yourself to learn the skills. Now, some people might say I disagree because there are some things that it's like going to school. If you want to be a doctor, I wouldn't ask that you just trust yourself and go be a surgeon, like a neurosurgeon, and go operate on people's brains, and you never went to go learn from someone. But when you are learning from people skills that are self-development, like discipline, motivation, encouragement, etc., and you need someone to instill those traits in you, that is completely different than learning something like neuropsychology or, to be a surgeon. It's just not the same thing. So use your discernment in that. There's things that you really don't have to pay for if you just had a little bit more faith in yourself and didn't really suffer from that, if that makes sense. So what are some Cinderella syndrome warning signs? One is defer to his or her partner's choices and decisions. It's those husbands that are always like, which is not a bad thing, because thinking about it, I mean, I would want my husband to always ask for, hey babe, what do you think about this? What is your opinion, etc. But it's those husbands and wives that, or boyfriends and girlfriends that literally allows their significant other to make every single decision for them. They have no opinion whatsoever. They're like, hey, let me go check to see what he or she wants to do. And whatever they want to do, that's what they're doing. Even if maybe deep down they might want to do something else, they always defer to the opinion of whoever they are with at the moment. And it's like, yeah, no opinion for themselves. Next is feel anxious living on their own. And if you cannot go and live on your own, you always need to be around people. Now, I know if you grew up in a big home, like you never had your own room or anything like that, it can seem very scary to go out there in the world on your own. So there's a little bit of hesitance with that. That's completely understandable. But it's for people that, like, I mean, for instance, say you're a young lady who is making bank, okay? You're making bank, you're making beyond 6 figures a year, but you rather stay in that same tiny small apartment than to ever buy a house, because it's like, hey, that's for when I get married. That's a big commitment to live alone. Or you can afford to live alone, but you stay with a roommate because you have a fear of just being alone. You just have a lot of fear of being alone. Most people like that tend to get pets, even if they don't have have a physical person living with them. They're the types to have multiple pets. They need to, and again, there's a lot of roots of reason why that could be, because it could be a security, like if you came from the hood or bad neighborhood or there was security issues, you might just feel like, hey, a home is a lot more safer when there's someone else living there as well. Or it could just be a codependency issue that you have. Like I said, you was never by yourself. You had siblings, etc., or your parents doted on you. So you're not used to being alone. There's a lot of reasons for that. Number 3 is find it difficult or impossible to make major life decisions on your own. Like you always need your friends' approval. You want to start this new business or go into this new career path, and you find that you always have to discuss it with someone. Now, there is a difference, because I do believe in getting counsel and seeking advice, especially from people that know you best and that mean well for you. I'm a strong believer in seeking counsel and help. But in the same breath, you really don't want to make it a habit for yourself where there's a difference between seeking counsel and you just not moving without someone else agreeing or giving their input with what you want to do. Like we could seek counsel and the counsel could still be wrong or go against whatever dream that God put in our heart. We have to have discernment of what that dream is, right? But to have the Cinderella complex is that it's beyond just seeking counsel. Is you're looking for someone to just make the decisions for you. You want to absolve yourself of the decision on a subconscious level. That could just mean that if this fails, you want to absolve yourself from any responsibility. If it fails and it's like, well, this person gave me this idea, that's why I did it. It's kind of like a protection against rejection for yourself. And it's also, you don't believe in yourself, so you need someone to hype you up to do what is already in your heart to do. You need motivation or you need inspiration. So you go to people. And if the person rains on your parade for whatever reason, maybe they just have a monitoring spirit or they don't mean you well, or anything like that, and you just go talk to them and they talk you out of something that probably would have actually worked great if you didn't necessarily go and get their approval for it. And then next is have difficulty supporting yourself and holding a job. Financially, it seems like you're always relying on someone else. You're always leeching, because on this channel, we're being self-reflective. If you find that you align with some of these, be honest with yourself. It could be whether you're a girl and you go to your mom or your dad for everything. You're now like 27 years old. Of course, you still live with your parents, which doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I encourage that in my after college money saving. If the longest you could stay with your parents, if they're not toxic, do that. But it's to the point where you're not even trying to work. You're not even trying to support yourself. You like just being a princess, getting spoiled and pampered. And once you leave your parents, you look for a spouse that's going to take the place of your parents, spoil and pamper you, where you never have to do anything. That's just the life that you're content with. And if it works for you, it works for you. But recognize that that is kind of like a Cinderella complex, to financially always be the responsibility of someone else, to have nothing of your own, no autonomy whatsoever. If you have a job, you quit often. There's always something wrong with the job. You'll start a venture. There's always something that happens to be wrong with it, because you're just more at ease, not thinking of the responsibility of taking care of yourself. You don't believe in yourself to be self-sufficient and get the things done that you need to get done. Next is prefer the traditional role of homemaker and mother. These do tend to be the housewives, and there's nothing wrong with being a housewife. But like I say, because a lot of people refer back to biblical days to justify just like doing nothing as a housewife in the house. But like I said, even in the Bible, the Proverbs 31 woman, she made those clothes from scratch. She made sure her house was provided for. She made sure things were in order. She wasn't just sitting home on TikTok, doing nothing, getting facials all day. That's not the Proverbs 31 woman. And I always tell people in that video, I will link in the comments for you guys, which is the rhetoric of the male-identified woman. I want you guys to check that out. But kind of similar in that where I told you guys, I explained that there was never an era for women where they did not have to work unless they were wealthy white women. Even the poor white women used to work, even in the olden age. They used to be on that farm milking cows too, be the maids in these wealthy white women's homes, and especially the Black women. You've never had an era where you was just carefree and resting. That was a privilege only for the wealthy. So there was never that era. And even in the Bible days, the women did a lot. They had a sense of community. The men went out to literally hunt and they took care of everything else, right? So a lot of people try to justify being like a stay-at-home wife and mother that with the nanny and everything. Like, I don't have a Cinderella complex. I'm just doing what the Bible says. I'm living in and resting in my femininity. If you're wealthy, your husband can provide for that. You can afford to be a Cinderella, then be that. But understand that even in those wealthier circles, there's always the possibility that you might want to leave where there's disrespect or whatever. Who knows? It might be good now, but there's a midlife crisis. And how many women with their horror stories have stated just what happened? People change. You might change. His personality might change. Things might happen. Or God forbid he gets into an accident or lose his cognitive abilities and now maybe has a stroke, and money goes bad. There's an economic crash. Anything could happen. And if you have no means of taking care, helping out with your family. Like in the Bible, the lady with the oil and the flour, the little flour that she had, that had the prophet Elijah come to her home. That's all she had. Her husband was no longer, she was a widow. She was a widow. So she had to now provide, and that's all she had. She was able to continue to provide with those oils, sell them, etc. You never know what could happen. And this is why the Cinderella complex can be dangerous, especially with this trend of the trad wife, that it's encouraging women to really have no set of skills for themselves. And even men now, there's the prince, the ones that their wives are the breadwinners too, and they're stay-at-home dads. That's popular too. That's a thing. Or some of them really do have their degrees and they had their companies or whatever, but they just weren't built for that for whatever reason, and their wives is the one taking the lead in that, and they just quit on polishing any further skills because they rather rely on someone. But if you find yourself relying on your friends, you don't mind people always picking up the tab for you, you're comfortable with it, you're comfortable with your parents always coming through even after the age of 30, you don't mind being the responsibility financially of anyone else, you might have the Cinderella complex. Next is forgetting important things like meetings and deadlines, always having sudden drama before a big step forward in life, changing your mind right before you achieve a goal. Like, I've decided I don't really want that job after all. It's like if they get the biggest opportunity just handed to them of a position that is so lucrative where the finances will be top tier and give them financial freedom, or maybe they got accepted into a dream school that they've been working to be accepted in for the longest, and the day of their entrance interview or whatever, they wake up late, they miss it. It's like they self-sabotage any opportunities that will force them to take any responsibility for themselves. And it's like, how did you not set an alarm? How are you late? How? Or you'll see that they were really excited about a position, like very excited. And then you're like, hey, whatever happened to this? I'm not interested anymore. Or they had this business idea, and you're like, what happened to this business idea? I don't see you talk about it anymore. Oh, I'm moving on, blah, blah, blah. Nothing is ever really consistent or set in stone, and they change their minds often, and they give themselves reason to change their mind, and they'll explain all of the things that was wrong and the qualifications that they don't have, etc., blah, blah, blah. That's a Cinderella complex. Or maybe my car broke down, or this happened this morning. It's always a whole bunch of drama as to why they didn't take on an opportunity that was just handed to them. Next is they prefer to always be romantically partnered with someone, usually someone who could be described as strong. This one definitely called me out a little bit because Women mostly deal with this Cinderella. We want like the Prince Charming that we feel can protect us from whatever. And again, there's a lot of reasons and a little bit of vulnerability with me. I always went towards the stronger man because of the neighborhoods that I grew up in. It was survive or die. Yeah, I've seen my testimony video already. And so I always had in my mind, like, I had to go for the biggest, the strongest, the most protective, and feeling protected is a big thing for me. In that Cinderella complex, you can feel like I'm not gonna really give someone a chance if I feel like they couldn't really protect me and I'm like vulnerable out here. But with healing and changing my mindset and overcoming a lot, I feel like the Lord calls me out and still calling me out on it, but called me out on it where it's like, I'm your protection. Like I told you guys in several videos, I'm a princess. I am a princess to my God, and He doesn't play about me. He cares about me. No man can protect me like He could, and He is. And it doesn't matter how strong or big someone is. The person that He has for me, who will also be just as in love with God as I am, will know exactly how to protect me, no matter if on the outside they look like they can or not, right? But I do understand that one a little bit. A lot of these Cinderella complexes does come from trauma, does come from rooted reasons. They're not very shallow for a lot of people. So it can tend to be like that. And if it's not like strong in the physical sense or dominant sense, like I'm not gonna let nobody play with you or protect my family, etc. It can be where you lacked. If in your home you grew up in poverty, you tend to look for a man who can provide financially, and that's that. Like if something, God forbid, was to happen to me, you have to take care of me financially, etc. So there's differences in that. Or it's like anything that makes your life more soft or pampered, etc., or with ease, to bring ease with you. You try to attribute that to the character, whoever you're talking to. Like, hey, I struggled with this. Like, if for me it was protection, then I have to get the strongest person and be able to be a Cinderella. Like my Prince Charming is going to save me from this bitter world. And listen, only God can do that. People, even with discipline and all of these things that we're talking about, like you're paying people to teach you that, you're paying people to motivate you. These are things, once you start healing, they really do come naturally. And only God can literally do that for you, to where you don't need motivation or extra, help or boost from anything, whether booze or pills, whatever, whatever. You don't need no boost from nothing. And He literally provides. I will never not say that. Rarely or never operates outside of his or her emotional comfort zone. Comfort, to be comfortable. Like if something seems scary or too big of a change, you're not going to operate in it. It seems safe to just walk as a workout. I'm just gonna work out and only walk. I'm not gonna lift weights. It seems like a lot to learn, a lot to do. I'm not comfortable with it. It makes me uncomfortable the next day. It makes me uncomfortable to go to the gym and have to do it, etc. So they operate within their comfort zone and just walk and do the treadmill forever. Whereas you really don't elevate until you start stepping out of your comfort zone. For me, this is me preaching to myself, because there are still things I like to stay within my comfort zone with. But I found that when I really, it's like, hey, I want to elevate to the next level. Let me polish this XYZ skill. And getting out of your comfort zone may take longer. Like it may be a longer route to, like, if you used to do something halfway, for you to do it the right way, it will take more time from you. That's outside of your comfort zone, so you avoid it. But there's a reward in looking at it just be done the right way. There's just a reward in it, and it's better to just wait and do things the right way and do things that are out of your comfort zone. Next is secretly or openly express a strong desire to be taken care of. Those women that or men that make no qualms. Like, you don't have to second guess if they want to be taken care of or not. They're very honest, transparent. I want to be taken care of. I want to be provided for. This is the life I want to live. And that's that. The ones that's like, if I'm going on a date with you, you have to pay for my makeup and you have to pay for my dress. You have to pay for this, that. And it's the first date. It's like, there are men that are like this too, where they really want to be the pampered princesses. They want to be in their soft man era, so they want to be taken care of. So next is feeling panicky at the thought of your partner leaving or dying, never feeling like anything is enough, a sense of emptiness. If you in a relationship, you think about it, like some of you guys, like I dealt with that. Like, I'm not even married yet, and I'm already thinking about what would I do when my husband died? That's scary. Like, sis, why are you even thinking that far? But yeah, if you overly obsessed over what could happen to your spouse, your parents, whatever, like, what would I do? I don't know how I do this, or how could I take care of this? Women like this too tend to stay in toxic relationships because they find it very overwhelming to think about how they're going to survive or take care of things. Maybe you've never had to worry about paying your car insurance, handy stuff around the house. If something was wrong with your car, you have your boyfriend that can go take care of that for you. There's things you just don't have to worry about in this particular relationship where you could be a little bit more chill and you're taken care of, right? Which is okay to have that need. And so now say this person starts to get toxic, and the idea of leaving them is a stress for you because you're like, how would I take care of all of this other stuff? Again, this doubt in yourself being able to be self-sufficient to take care of those things, and trusting in God that you will be okay. It's out of your comfort zone. It will be a learning curve. It may be a little struggle, but you will be okay. And yeah, that's from experience. I'm just telling you guys, like, you'll always be okay. You don't have to stay in a relationship where you're staying in it because you're scared of how things will be. You're sufficient, God is sufficient, and you will be okay. Okay, beloved? You will be okay. You know those women that are damsel in distress in the presence of men? There's nothing wrong with that. I'll say that, because best believe I am like that if I have a whole bunch of groceries in my hands, but it's a cultural thing. They do train it, and I like it. I prefer to be like that. Cinderella Complex or not, I prefer to be like that. If I have a whole bunch of groceries in my hands, best believe I want you to help me carry them inside if there's none around, or there's just some things like that. But know the difference between things like that, like something heavy, or to reach something, open something. That's something completely different than you become completely incapacitated when there's a man around. Like, you're not able to do anything for yourself. Things that you're able to do, all of a sudden, you just, with every little thing, like you're weak. That is a completely different situation. Your self-sufficiency dies. No, that's something different. And yeah, you have to be mindful of that. Because then these women tend to be like, oh, he's around. They're not going as hard as they could be in their careers. They're not going as hard as they could be in their daily life or ventures or things that bring them joy. They just become this person that all of a sudden forgets all of their dreams and things like that whenever their person is around. I can't do it. I'm weak. I'm this and that. No. Next is stop making decisions for yourself. Spend more time pleasing your partner than yourself. Meaning that you'll sacrifice your self-care. You'll sacrifice what you need for yourself. If you have to work or get some certain things done or whatever, it's like everything stops for your partner. You no longer have an identity or a sense of self. Everything stops for this person. And you start to notice your career, your friendships, your family relationships, everything starts to suffer because now you're people pleasing to be in this relationship. Next is become a caretaker, settling, cooking, and cleaning more than usual. It's like those women that get in a relationship and then they start to cook already, do his laundry, baby him, become his mother. And men Also, some men, they overdo it and they'll start to do a little bit more than usual with the cleaning. It can be sweet if you're married. You naturally, there's like, I wouldn't want a marriage that naturally just brings out more that nurturing essence out of me that makes me want to cook and take care of home. But if it's at the detriment of your goals also, and your very essence of who you are, then that's when it becomes a problem, where you become overly exhausted and worked. It's kind of like with the people pleasing thing. Next is suddenly have money issues and need them to take charge, which we spoke about with the financial burden. And then the next is keep getting sick. For example, ongoing flu or colds or pain. You're on your period. The cramps all of a sudden is super intense when when he's around. All of that little stuff. And next is stop your hobbies and interests and engage in your partners instead. Having no identity for yourself, everything that he likes or she likes, you like, and you no longer, the lines become blurred of who you are and what you like. Next and last is staying, even if it's obviously a dysfunctional relationship, in which we spoke about, because now you're too dependent and you have made yourself too dependent on this person. So, friends, this is a Cinderella complex. It reminds me of the Cheetah Girls. I don't want to be like Cinderella, sitting waiting at cold, that's December. I love that song, but please don't be a Cinderella. Please do not be a Cinderella. You are enough, you are capable, and you can motivate yourself, and you don't have to rely on anyone for motivation, financial stability, anything like that. Do what you have to do to be self-sufficient. But this is all I have for this video. Comment below the ones you relate with. I was transparent. I commented. I said what I relate to. So I want some transparency in the comments to return it. And leave a pink heart in the comments. Yeah. Leave a pink heart in the comments. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time. Bye.